Hello, everyone, and happy Pride Month. My name is Joe Woolley, and I am the CEO of the Nashville LGBT Chamber. Welcome to our June Member Connect, where we talk with our members about their businesses and the work they're doing. We're streaming live to Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn from StreamYard. We are so happy to be joining you today, and we want you to be part of this conversation. Comments are open on all platforms for your questions and input if you're watching this live. Send them in during the presentation. Questions will be addressed during the Q&A session at the end of each member's presentation. We will ask any questions that need to be answered or clarified immediately when they come up. So use that comment section and ask those questions to our awesome members. This program is part of our Rainbow Connection series. This series includes networking events, educational opportunities, and connections. Check out our website for more information on upcoming events. If it's Thursday, then we're having a program. We have Network Connect. That's our Brewing Up Business program. We have it in the AM and the PM. We have Classroom Connect, our educational series. Corporate Connect, where we bring together our corporate members to talk about diversity and inclusion work that they're doing. And Benefit Connect, where you hear about all the different benefits you get with a chamber membership. If you'd like to be a part of our Member Connect series, which you're watching now in the months ahead, please reach out to us and we'll let you know when the schedule is open. We've got a lot of great members lined up to talk to. We would love to profile you and add you to that list. Today, we have two great ones that we have been working with for quite some time and doing some really important work, and that work is creating families. Today, we're excited to highlight two of our members who have specialized in adoption services, Camelot Care Centers and Jewish Family Services. In 2020, our community faced anti-LGBT adoption bills. It was up in the session before that, and last year in 2020, in January, they came back, and the very first bill that they passed in the Senate, which finalized it, and it was sent to the governor's desk and signed. It was the very first law passed in 2020, was an anti-LGBT adoption bill. This bill was discriminatory and wrong in so many ways. And we had immediate turnout from the community and from our members to oppose this, to make sure that LGBT adoption was not outlawed, that there were still businesses that were helping LGBT couples to adopt. The bill, what it did was allow organizations to turn away LGBT same-sex parents from adopting if they so chose. The great thing is we had organizations step up to say, we are here to help you and we want to help you. And two of those members are here with us today. We also want to mention our member Miriam's Promise, who works in foster care and adoption for the LGBTQ+ community. And they weren't able to join us today, but we definitely wanted to mention them and their incredible work. We're so lucky to have so many resources in our membership for same-sex couples, for LGBT people to start their families. First up today is a longtime good friend of mine, Pam Kellner. She's the executive director of Jewish Family Services. Pam joined Jewish Family Services in 2010 as executive director. The fit has been perfect for the agency, where she has combined her business background with a social worker heart to grow the agency in many ways, including expanding programming, grant writing, fundraising, marketing, and board development. Jewish Family Services is a bronze member that joined the chamber following major anti-LGBT adoption legislation. Jewish Family Services is known as a leader in providing innovative and effective social service solutions to problems facing families and individuals of all ages. Welcome, Pam. How are you?
Great. It's wonderful to be with you this Thursday morning. Thanks.
It's great to see you and to be talking with you as always. It's officially joined the chamber, and you've been doing this work after the anti-LGBT adoption bill, but really, Jewish Family Services is the pioneer in same-sex adoption and has been working with the community for a number of years. I'd love for you to start with a brief history 101 of the incredible work we've done together, the community and Jewish Family Services, and then tell us more about Jewish Family Services.
Perfect. Everybody's ready for a history lesson on this Thursday morning?
We are.
Lauren, if you don't mind bringing up the timeline, that would be great. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So way back when, in 1977, JFS completed our very first adoption in the Jewish community. And we formed our adoption agency for the very reason that faith-based adoption agencies would not serve the Jewish community. In their quest to form families, we were discriminated against. So we said, you know what, we're going to form our own adoption agency. And in 1977, we completed our very first adoption. You could go to the next slide, please. Then in 2002, we got our very first call from an openly gay man who had been trying for 2 very long years to adopt a child. He wanted to build a family. He went to 2 adoption agencies. They gave him the runaround. He called multiple agencies, and then he made a phone call to JFS. And within 2 months, our social workers had him approved with an adoption home study to adopt his daughter. And he's now pictured right here, actually, with his daughter, who is now almost 19 years old, beautiful young lady. And the first hurdle that he had was actually finding an agency that would serve him. The second hurdle would be actually placing a baby with him, finding an adoptive or a birth mother who would place a child with him as an openly gay man. And our social worker happened to be working with a lovely young lady who just couldn't afford to have another child. And she held her breath and she said, would you consider placing your child with a gay man? And it's just a funny story. She said, you know what? My only hesitation would be is that he would spoil that child rotten. I have gay friends and relatives, and they spoil their children. So I would love to place my child with Chris, who's pictured here with Maria. And again, now she's a 19-year-old beautiful young lady. If you could go to the next slide. So unfortunately, legislation has been in the Tennessee legislation for a very long time. The very first bill came up in 2005 to ban LGBT adoption, and our social worker, Terry, testified as an adoption professional before the Children and Families Affairs Committee of the Senate, of the State House of Representatives, against the dangerous bill to ban gay adoption in Tennessee. And at that point, it did not pass. You could go forward to the next slide. Then in 2005, we got a phone call from Judge Marietta Shipley, who is pictured in this picture here. And she asked us if we would perform the very first home study in Tennessee for a second parent adoption. Without hesitation, we said yes. Again, she had called every agency in Nashville who performs adoption work, and no other agency would step up to perform a second parent adoption. Essentially, what a second parent adoption is, it provides security and stability to the child in the event that something happens to their biological or originally adopting parent, so that they will still have that legal relationship with the only other parent that they have ever known. So it gives both parents legal rights to that child. And since we did our very first second parent adoption in 2005, we've provided this security and stability to over 95 children in the Middle Tennessee area. So if you could go forward, please. So again, ugly bills tend to rear their heads here in our legislature, and every year the Jewish community has an opportunity to lobby or, talk about the issues that we care about with our legislators. And I decided that this was going to be my issue, and I spoke to different people about our strong opposition to another potential bill to ban gay adoption here in Tennessee. If you could go forward again, please. In 2011, we were very happy to be awarded the HRC Equality Award for both the on-the-ground work that we do in building families, as well as our advocacy work. It was a great, wonderful evening. So, yay, marriage equality. What this meant for the adoption world was amazing. I mentioned earlier that same-sex couples needed to perform what's called the second parent adoption, which essentially means one parent had to adopt, and then the second parent had to perform a second parent adoption in order to become the legal guardians for that child. Now, with marriage equality, if one person or if a couple wants to adopt, they could adopt together. They don't have to perform the second parent adoption. If one of the parents is a biological parent, let's say it's a lesbian couple and one of the partners has the baby, if they are legally married, both of the parents are now on the birth certificate of that child. So it's true equality in terms of adoption as well, because they don't have to perform a second parent adoption, which is amazing. Unfortunately, our work went down a little bit, but we're very happy that happened. So if you could advance the next. And this is the law, unfortunately, that passed last year that Joe was speaking about in the beginning of his talk or his introduction. And the thing about this is that it's taxpayer money. If it's taxpayer money that is allowing these agencies to adopt. For example, if it's a foster care agency that is receiving federal dollars or local dollars, they're able to discriminate against an LGBT couple just because, a closely held religious belief. And, we tried for the other bills that came up to defeat this, but unfortunately this one went through. But we're here, and Camelot is here, and there are Miriam's promises there to do this amazing work. So we're not defeated. There are amazing options, and
you're totally right on that. And just for clarification for everybody, this bill was the bill that passed in 2020. This was moved forward in 2019. Tennessee has 2 legislative sessions. If a bill's introduced in one, it can be passed in the other. They're year to year, back to back, 2-year sessions. It moved forward in 2019. It was paused, and then the Senate voted on it. The only thing left to do was the Senate voted on it in 2020. That passed everything else. It was sent to the governor, and he signed it. It was the very first bill in 2020 that they passed, and that was signed into law. And then there were no other bills in 2020 that moved forward, largely due to COVID. But this bill really kicked off the anti-LGBT wave of discrimination that we saw crest and crash over us this year, 2021, where we had the 5 anti-LGBT bills passed. So separate than the 5 this year, it passed last year pre-COVID. I just want to make sure everybody understands that, because it is very confusing on the amount of anti-LGBT bills that they are throwing at our community. So, and you're right though, we rallied and made sure that families knew where to go to start their families. So just wanted to jump in there and clarify that.
Thank you. Thank you, because you were knee deep in it. I was not. So thank you. I appreciate everything that you do.
But,
yes.
Great. Just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Yep. So if you could advance forward. So last year, the HRC has this new certification process for agencies that are serving the LGBT community. It's a fairly rigorous vetting process because they want to make sure that if you walk in the door of an agency, that you are treated with dignity, with respect, just like any other client that walks in the door. And that is exactly how JFS practices with both adoption as well as, by the way, I could talk on a different subject, counseling. We also provide counseling services to the LGBT community, and we've been certified. Basically, we've been given the stamp of approval by the HRC. And I'm very proud to say that we are at least as of last year, we'll see maybe other agencies applied for it this year, but we are the only agency in all of Tennessee that is certified by the HRC as a all children, all families agency. So next slide, please. And this is today. Over 180 families in the LGBTQ community and growing formed through JFS adoption journeys. And this is one of my we're a full service social service agency. We have over 18 different programs and services. And I have to say, this is my pride and joy. I love when our families, I don't work directly in the direct service, but at the end of the process, I get to meet these families, and it's like the highlight of my day when families come in and I get to see the beautiful families that we form through adoption. So that's it for the history lesson. Now for the, if you're interested in adoption, if you don't mind bringing up the PowerPoint.
We're going to do a little slide transition. That was wonderful to hear about and really captured the progression. Pam, I mean, talk about that journey of where you started. No one would do it. The first case, you really highlighted marriage equality and how that really changed things. But still, you could still continue to do this work. And then last in 2020, that bill's passed, and you're even more needed in the community than ever.
Absolutely. So again, it's a beautiful thing that we don't have to do second parent adoptions anymore. It's true equality. But if anybody wants to still adopt, just outright adopt, they come to us as a couple or as a single. There are clients of ours who are single. For example, Christopher Harris, who is pictured in that first picture, Maria Salas, single people who just want to build a family come to us as well. So couples are still coming to us to build families through straight outright adoption, not being a biological parent in any way. So we're still doing the work. It's a little bit different.
All right, we have that slide ready for you.
So I just wanted to give a couple of quotes from some clients of ours over the years. And I think that I just want to, I told you the facts of what we do, but I think that the most important thing is how we approach our work. And again, I use the words dignity before equality, not treating our LGBT clients any different from a Jewish couple that comes in, or a Muslim couple for that matter, or an atheist couple. We serve the entire community in their quest to build a family. And that is just, they're people wanting to build a family. And if they will make a good parent, we will approve them we'll approve their home study to begin their journey of becoming a parent. So a brief description of the adoption journey is the first step is to call us. And we have free information sessions, with anybody that calls that just wants to explore the opportunity of adopting. And you call us at 356-4234, and one of our social workers will set up a time to meet with you. We're meeting in person again, which is very exciting. We were doing this over Zoom for the past year and a half, which, it's a very emotionally charged process. So that is not the ideal by any means to start an adoption journey, but we did it, and now we're back in person. So steps to adoption, the first step is, after you decide that you want to start this process, is a home study. And this is a very, fairly rigorous process of medical references, financials, coming into the home to make sure that you have the ability to support a child in your home, interviews. It's a very, very rigorous process, but our social workers want to make sure that you're ready to move forward in this journey. And most people are approved. I'd say 99% of the people who come to us are approved to adopt. After your home study is approved, then you can move into the placement process. We are not a placing agency. However, we work with different agencies that are placing agencies, and we have a whole list of LGBT friendly, Q+ friendly agencies that we refer to, and we help to facilitate that process. We just are not a placing agency. We don't have babies ready to be placed. And then once the baby is in your home and you have been placed, we have mandatory state post-placement visits. I believe that the minimum is 3 for post-placement visits, and that's basically just to make sure that bonding is going well, support the family. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned, but our 2 people that work on adoption are LCSWs, social workers, so they are very skilled at making sure that the family is bonding properly. And depending on the state where you adopt, it could be up to 5 post-placement visits. That varies, but that's a basic overview of the steps to adoption. I would recommend, if anybody wants to explore it, just give us a call and they'll walk you through what the process is. So that's it for me.
Well, that was wonderful, and some great information there. How big is the team now? Are you guys, what's the team size?
So we're still our little tiny but mighty agency. 2 social workers, our volunteer coordinator who works mainly with our senior population, myself, office manager, and our controller. And by the way, our social workers work on adoption, counseling, financial assistance, family life education. So we are a full service social service agency. So yes, we're still tiny, but
do incredible work, and so much work. Those numbers. So in full disclosure, I was familiar with Jewish Family Services long before the Chamber, within the community. When I found them and saw the work they were doing, I just fell in love with what you guys are doing and the team, and just everything, and wanted to support you all however I could. And we had some fun fundraisers for you all.
Did. I should get the pictures up.
We should. We had some great pictures, some really fun events to raise money for the organization from the community. But I just fell in love with what you guys were doing, and you do so much. The numbers now, to see over 100 families, LGBT families that have been helped by Jewish Family Services, is just incredible. And you guys do so much with such a small team. You know, Pam, you're such an ally to the community. You serve on the Nashville Pride Board, and you've been involved in that for a number of years.
Yes.
talk a little bit more about the allyship with the community, why Jewish Family Services, why the Jewish community thought this was so important to do and to not discriminate, to help build these families.
I appreciate you asking that. And that really is what drove us to do the work in the first place. Unfortunately, we experienced discrimination as well. And it's a tenet of ours not to discriminate, because we know what it feels like. You know, it's that whole theory of we were once a stranger in a strange land, and we're just not gonna discriminate. Our sole concern is for the child. That's really that's the ultimate goal, is to place a child in a loving family. And if a single person or a couple approaches us and they are going to provide a good, loving home, we will serve that couple. If they will not provide a good, loving home, we will not serve that couple. That's the only criteria. And it really just goes back to that we're not going to discriminate, because we unfortunately know what that feels like.
It's beautiful. And thank you again for everything you've done for the community and continue to do.
Thank you.
If you have questions out there, we'd love to take them. We can bring Pam back in at the end of the other portion of the program. If you do have any questions, kind of to wrap up, Pam, if you are interested in starting a family, is the first step a home study? It really would be reaching out to Jewish Family Services or Camelot and saying, I'm interested. And is the first step a home study and education?
Yes, the first step is the home study. The first step is an informational meeting, free of charge, just exploring and finding out what the process is and making that decision whether you're going to move forward. Some people will call us today, and then it might take them a year before they actually take that step. It's a big, it's a huge step to form a family in any way. It's, in a biological way, in an adoption, it's a huge decision. So, they might make an informational call and then start the process 1 year later, 6 months later, the next day, if they're really ready to go. But yes, a home study is it's required, by the way. It's a state requirement. You cannot adopt without a home study. So I don't know if I made that clear.
That's a good point to make and to close on, that is your first step. And yes. You're there to help parents, whether gay or straight, anybody, any parent that wants to become a parent, you're there to help them along the way. Pam, thank you so much for being a member, for all that you've done, and to Jewish Family Services, continue the great work, and we're here to assist anytime. Happy Pride. Happy
Pride. Thank you. I'll see you in September in the Kids Zone.
That's right. Oh, that's right. You run the Kids Zone for the Nashville Pride Festival.
Yes. So September 18th, well, I'm going to make a plug for Pride, September 18th and 19th. We're at Bicentennial Mall this year, moving from Public Square Park. So see you there.
Right. The festival is moving. Pride is still being celebrated in June. The festival is moving to September, but it's not going anywhere. It will be, I think, bigger and better than ever. And thanks for being a part of that as well.
Thank you.
See ya. All right, everybody. How about that for our first member profile, Member Connect? Our second is another very good friend of mine. We've known each other for a long, long time, and that is Dustin Keller, who is CEO of Camelot Care Center. Dustin received his PhD in psychology from North Central University and is a licensed professional counselor, mental health service provider, and a national certified counselor. He is certified as an expert from the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress. Dustin is now serving as the Chief Executive Officer for Camelot in Tennessee, providing leadership and strategic development. He is also an adjunct professor in psychology at Belmont University. Camelot is a platinum member and one of the first adoption agencies to join the chamber after the 2020 anti-adoption bill. Dustin reached out and said, I am so mad about this. I want to, help facilitate change and make sure people know they absolutely can still start families. And we started this work, and we're so grateful for that support. Camelot Care Centers of Tennessee is a leading provider of community-based counseling, therapy, foster care, family preservation, and prevention services. Dustin, welcome. It is so good to see you.
Hey, welcome, Joe. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here and to talk about helping people start families.
It's great to have you here and continue this conversation. Let's start off by telling us a little bit about the history of Camelot Care Centers.
Sure. So Camelot's been around since 1972. We started in Illinois and Tennessee. We've stretched out now and been bought along the way, and so now we're owned by a company called Pathways, and they're in 18 states, including the District of Columbia. So we're kind of all over the U.S. at this point, but starting in 1972, the idea was there had to be a better way to provide services for folks struggling with mental health and behavioral health issues. And so our founders at the time really wanted to do a better way. We didn't want to institutionalize, and we didn't want people going to hospitals. We wanted people to stay in their home and to get services. And that commitment just continued to grow. We wanted to do services without walls. We didn't want people to go to even residential facilities if we can serve them in the home. So that's our main goal, keeping people in the home where we know that they can be served the best. When you take them out of their home environment and put them in an artificial environment, we know that they don't do well when they come back into their natural environment. So let's serve them there. Let's help keep the family unit together. And as a part of that, we started doing foster care, and we started getting into this process of wanting to open homes for people who have a heart and a home that they want to open up and share the love that they have with a young person. We'd love to talk about putting one of the 9,000 foster kids in Tennessee in your home. And much like you said earlier, Joe, there's lots of companies in Tennessee that do this work, lots of companies that would welcome anybody that walked through the door who wants to love a young person. You mentioned Miriam's Promise, certainly the Jewish Family Services, Camelot. There's many others. So if you've checked in with one of us before and you didn't like the reception you get, it's sort of like finding that fit where you feel like you're at home with whatever agency you provide. Don't give up. There's 9,000 kids in Tennessee that need a home. So keep looking around. Go to different providers and find the one that you feel is a fit for you. Any one of us would love to have you and talk about putting a child in your home.
9,000 children that are in that need a foster home. That's correct?
Well, lots of them might be in homes now, but there's 9,000 kids in the state's custody that are being served by the Department of Children's Services.
And so then 9,000 in custody, what is the need of those that need placed in a home? Do you know that number?
On any given day,
my question is, are there enough foster
No.
parents out there?
Not at this point. And I don't think as long as I've been in this business, we need additional homes because kids come into custody every day, unfortunately, in our state. We also find that, if you do want to foster a child, you do not have to adopt the child or even be open to adoption. You can just have the child in your home for a period of time while their biological family is going through services or getting back on their feet or doing what they need to have their child come back into their custody. If you do want to adopt, you can come to us and you can foster to adopt. So it's a lot of different options. And so yeah, the numbers change daily, and as homes foster to adopt, usually they'll close. They won't take any more foster children. So we're constantly, all agencies that do this work are constantly looking for people willing to foster.
So let's stay on the foster and adoption conversation, and then I want to hear more about the other services that Camelot provides. But
Sure.
Does a person have to want to adopt to foster? You can just foster and not adopt. You've just described that. What's the first step in adoption or foster with Camelot? Is it a home study similar to Jewish Family Services?
To some extent, yes. As Pam said, you have to get before you can even have a foster child in your home, you have to do a home study. But for us, it can start in somewhat a variety of ways. To foster, you have to go through classes. The Key class is what it's called now. Whatever provider you go to, you're going to take Tennessee Key. The provider will also add in some additional courses around behavior management and sort of more therapeutic type classes to help you manage a child's behavior. But there's a core set of coursework that you have to take to foster no matter where you go. It's put out by DCS called Tennessee Key. The agencies provide it. We'll train you in that free of charge. And I believe it starts out as 8 weeks. 1 night a week, and you go. And so you can do those trainings. You can start those trainings without a home study, without really knowing that, you really want to foster. You just want to learn more about it. You can start going through the trainings and see what it's all about. As a part of that process, if you want to continue, there is a rigorous background check process that you have to go through. There is the home study part of that process. We'll ask for some references of people who would, say that you're a good moral character. But if you can get through that rigorous process that the state requires of anybody, we would love to work with you.
That's good information. So you can start there before anything else, and it really helps you decide if this is something you want to pursue.
Yes. Yeah. The training is a great way to start because you'll get a good understanding of what it's going to be like. And you mentioned, you can, there's so many needs for different types of foster homes and people willing to take a wide variety of ages, demographics of children. Some of the harder to place children are older children, adolescents in their teen years. So if you're open to having, an older teen in your home, there's opportunities for that. We just even need homes that would be willing to take a child for the weekend. Lots of parents, lots of families take children, and they might have some, more difficult behavioral needs. And so every now and then they just want a break, and we need homes that would be willing to take a child for the weekend and provide respite to that child. The process is somewhat similar. You still have to go through the background, and the training, but you could do that and be reimbursed for your cost to have a child in your home just for short periods of time.
Are you working, if you do that, are you working with Camelot to take those children? Are those children being placed through Camelot? Or is that the Department of Children's Services that are then coming to you once you're a registered foster parent?
We would place. So you stay with the agency that license you. You can move agencies at any time, but you stay with the agency that license you, and we would call you up and say, hey, DCS has a child that they're looking to place that fits the criteria that you've outlined. Would you be willing to take this child at this time? And so you can say, I don't want a child over 6, or I don't want a child under 10. We have families who say, I'm like, if it were me, I'm a man, I would probably feel more comfortable with boys, or I only want girls. You can kind of lay out some of your expectations. I will tell you, though, the more open you are, the more of an opportunity you have to have a child placed. The more restrictive you are, it might take longer, and there might be less opportunity.
So with a foster child, not all foster children are up for adoption, but if they do become open to adoption, does that foster family have an option to adopt, or how does that work?
Yes, unless there's other issues that we haven't talked about. Yes, if a child is placed in your home, and then the parental rights are terminated, or otherwise there's nowhere for that child to go, or they're not trying to return to biological relatives, you would have the option to adopt that child if you so chose. There's a lot that plays into that, but the short answer is yes, you would be able to become a pre-adoptive placement. And you would, and usually we know that on the front end when the child comes into your home that DCS is working towards termination of parental rights or making that child available for adoption. So you would more than likely know that, on the front end.
Now, if you want to move forward with adoption, or if they wanted to come to you for private adoption, they don't want to foster first, does Camelot Care Services assist in just the private adoption world?
At this point, we really don't. We would help you with a home study, much like Jewish Family Services. We would help you get the home study component, but we currently don't work with private adoptions in placement and looking for private adoptions. I will say, though, lots of our families come to us because they'll go to adoptuskids.org, which is a federal website of available kids for adoption across the country, and say, I found a child that I think matches our family, and we'd like to talk about adopting that child. We can work with them to help facilitate that. They can come and start out by being a foster parent. We can work with wherever that child is in most cases, if they're, in Utah or California or wherever the child might be, and we can work on getting that child placed here with you and with your family. So there's an option there as well to actually preview kids who are currently available.
Okay, that's good. That's good information to know, so that you could come to Camelot, you could come to Jewish Family Services, you do all of your work, and then you do go to an adoption provider, or there's this website and these services to actually adopt, to find your child. That's correct, right?
For private adoptions, yes.
Private adoption. Okay.
Not in Tennessee State's custody. Those kids, we can help you with that. You don't have to go anywhere else but to us.
Okay, I got you. I understand now. The Tennessee custody of children, and then private adoption more broadly outside the state. So
right.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the other services that Camelot provides.
So we're a full behavioral health provider. We provide the slate of services around individual therapy, group therapy, family therapy. We also provide some intensive in-home services. If you currently have a child and you're struggling with some of the behaviors and trying to figure out how to manage your family unit, we can come in and help you do that. We can also help you find resources if you're struggling with either housing or food or financial assistance. We have a health link service that we can help link you up with those services and follow your case and help you in that regard. And again, all the services we provide are without regard to race, creed, sexual identity, sexual orientation. We provide anyone that walks in the door and needs our services. So we'd love to talk with you about that. We all know the pandemic has wreaked havoc on lots of our mental health and caused lots of stress and anxiety. So if you're just looking for an innocent person to have a conversation with about how you're feeling or how you're doing, please give us a call. We'd love to just have a conversation.
Well, thank you for making that offer and making that known, and I hope our members will take advantage of that. It has been quite the year. I have tried to talk very openly about mental health. I don't think it's something we should be ashamed of to talk about or seek help for. And I do think there is this stigma about it that we've got to shed. There is nothing wrong with seeking mental health. You go to the doctor for a number of different reasons to take care of your body. You should do it for your mind as well. The last 16 months have been rough, and it's great to know that Camelot is there to help out the community. We're very appreciative of that. We were very appreciative when you reached out after that 2020 adoption bill was signed into law and said, we're not gonna step back and let this stand. How do we get involved? You joined the chamber at a very high level, and we had started to roll out a real information campaign for same-sex couples, for LGBT people to know that adoption was out there. And then COVID hit us, and we all had to go into kind of the survival mode that we've been in for the last 15 months. Tell us more about why Camelot thought that was important to reach out to the community and really react to that law being passed.
I think it's just important anytime that anyone is marginalized or discriminated against. I think it's important for those who are supportive and those who can help to speak up and step out. I think you talked with Pam about being an ally. I think that's the importance of being an ally, whether it's for race reasons, sexual identity, sexual orientation, religious reasons, whatever the case is, to step out and say, there may be people who feel a certain way. We don't feel that certain way. We're here to help you. We're here to serve you. And there's lots of others, as I've mentioned, that stand with us. So it's not just about Camelot and not just about me. There's lots of agencies. And so I think it's when we all stand up together, like at the chamber, our voice is bigger and stronger, and love trumps hate.
Yes. Amen. That's what Pride is all about. Love is love, and we need to do a lot more loving. We sure do appreciate the allyship and just the support to reach out and say, we're here. You can still adopt, you can still have the family, and here are the services to help you. It's just, thank you. Thank you, and Camelot. If you have questions, if you're watching out there and you have questions, please put them in the comments. We'd love to hear from you and answer any questions that you might have. Dustin, tell us a little bit about the work. What's the last year been like for Camelot? Have you seen an increase, I'm assuming, in mental health assistance, but what does the foster care system look like as well over the last year?
So much like many businesses, we went completely virtual. It hasn't been until the last couple of months that we've actually started going back into homes full time, face to face. For much of the better part of last year, we were completely virtual, even with our foster families, and provided lots of support virtually through Zoom, like we're doing now, and doing it that way. And so all of our services were provided that way. Certainly, I think people were more open to receiving services and talking with someone about the stress and the anxiety and their work-life balance. I mean, lots of you know, you've had people working from homes. And so if you have children at home or a spouse or a loved one at home with you, you know the challenges that you face when, like for me, my son would come to the door and be like, Dad, I'm bored. Or my other favorite was the bath or the half bath in our house is right outside my office door. And so I'd be on a call like this, and then you'd hear him in the background, Dad, I'm done. And so, you know, we've all dealt with that. And I think right now, I'm certainly glad you asked, because we're working with lots of businesses around doing some training around burnout. I think lots of businesses are experiencing high amounts of turnover. Research across the world basically has said that especially white collar jobs is seeing unprecedented amounts of turnover, never before seen in history, people changing jobs. And I think part of it is that it's all about burnout, and we're burned out with the pandemic. We're burned out with being stuck at home, and we want to get back out there. We want to go back to festivals. You know, we want to go back out to sporting events and do all of those things, and we haven't been able to do it. And for some, we blame our job. We think our job is getting in the, you know, that we're burned out with our job. And the truth is, it's not our job. It's the situation. And so lots of people are moving, and so we're doing training sessions with businesses around some of that work-life balance and burnout. So if we can help talk with you about training your folks in that regard, we'd love to be of help, because we know personally, we know how difficult it is to retain good talent and keep people working, you know, in certain industries. And so we'd love to talk about that as well.
Well, thank you. I'm sure our corporate members and all of our members are interested in hearing that. I know attraction and retention of talent is high on everybody's list. This discriminatory legislation has not helped in that regards. People look at Tennessee and say, Nashville looks like a great city, but I don't want to live in this state. And they're moving to more progressive areas of the country where their families are supported, where they're supported. So we've got to continue to make that connection there.
And you know, Joe, as well as I do as an advocate, we need you here. The areas that don't have these hateful laws and legislations, you know, that's like-minded people for sure. But we need more people here to come that are open-minded and that are willing to help us advocate and make change. This is where we need people. Absolutely.
Absolutely. We warn of the fallout, and then we do everything we can to work against it, because when people leave the state, when there is economic backlash, it's our community that feels it the most. So anyways, that's a great point. We do have some questions coming in, and we can pull Pam in if she wants to take some of these as well. We have a question from Talisha Williams, who says, thank you so much for this. We've just started the class with DCS, info meeting, and first module of Tennessee Key down. Should we reach out to you all soon or wait until we finish the Tennessee Key training? Dustin, I think that was directed at you.
So I would say that, and thank you, Talisha, and thank you for signing up to start the process to be a foster parent. It's inappropriate for me if you've started with DCS. It's sort of inappropriate for me in some ways to recruit you personally to come to Camelot. It's part of the code that we all have around not trying to poach other people's foster parents, but if you look at things and you decide you wanted to go to a different provider, DCS has certain types of children, and then the providers have different types of children that need additional services or have different that we provide different support to. And so if you decide that you want to go with a different type of child, certainly you can reach out to us, and you can do it either way. But if you do come to Camelot or one of the other providers, if you move providers, in other words, whether it's DCS or myself or one of the others, you would have to repeat certain classes because, again, we have certain clinical models and different types of interventions that we use. And so you would have to redo some of the coursework just to make sure that you understand what the counselor and the therapist and the coordinators are going to be telling you. And so there would be some work there. So it's sort of totally up to you and what your preferences are. But thank you for coming forward. Yeah, we certainly need more like you.
Thank you for answering that, and great question. Thank you, Talisha. We've got another one that came in. Let me find it. We've got Charlie Hadia. I joined late, so forgive me if my question was covered. How long does it take on average to become foster parents and to go through the adoption process? And then she followed up with time for each process separately. Pam, do you want to take the adoption one? And then
Sure.
Dustin, you could cover the time for foster?
Sure.
So generally speaking, to be approved with the home study to start the process of adoption, it takes, depending on how quickly you complete everything, it could take a month to 2 months or so. To become approved to become an adoptive parent. Then you move into the placement process. And basically what you do is present yourself as a single person or as a couple, as a prospective adoptive person. And placement agencies present your profiles out to their birth parents. And what's the beautiful thing about this, just as I mentioned, our very first birth parent picking Chris as the person that she wanted to place Maria with, the birth parent chooses you. You present yourself, you say, I'm, married, this is what my family life is like, and they choose you. They say, you know what, this is the type of person that I want to place my child with. So to be honest with you, it's a range, that could take a month. It could take a year for a birth parent to place their child with you. That there's no really defined time frame for that process. And then once the child is born, it's placed in your home. And then it's just a formalization in the courts where you actually adopt that child and it becomes formalized. And then the post-placement process starts to begin. And as I mentioned, it could be, 3 post-placement visits, depending on the state, up to 5 over the course of a year.
Okay, great. And Dustin, with foster?
So much like Pam said, it just depends on how fast you want to move and how quickly we can get some of the documents and some of those things accomplished. But it's a minimum of 12 weeks. The courses or the key classes that you take is a minimum of 12 weeks worth of classes and education. Lots of times we can do the home study and we can do the background checks and all of that at the same time. So no quicker than 12 weeks to get licensed as a foster parent. Once you're licensed, depending on what type of child you want, or if you have restrictions around ages and those sorts of things, then it just depends on when a child is available to be placed through DCS. Typically, I would say usually within 30 to 60 days of becoming licensed, if you're very open to taking, any child that's available, you will probably get a child placed in your home. I will say too, we didn't talk about this, Joe, but foster care, you do get reimbursed. You do get a daily rate of reimbursement for being a foster parent up until the point that you adopt. So you are compensated. It's not considered wages or pay. It's more of a reimbursement for providing room and board and food and shelter and love to that child. So you did get paid to be a foster parent.
Thank you all so much for answering that. I think we have a great question coming in from Jake Martino. And he asked, if a straight trans couple with legal male and female paperwork fly under the radar regarding discriminatory legislation, can you talk about open versus closed adoptions? So I think the question there is open or closed, what's the better option there?
Do you want me to go first?
Either one of you. Yeah.
So, our philosophy is that we want our clients to be open with who they are. We're not going to present a couple in any way other than what their true lived identity is. So we would present you out to birth parents as an open, straight trans couple with legal male and female paperwork, and we have placed children in those situations. So, our philosophy is honesty is the best policy, and being open with who you are, and beautiful families can be formed that way.
Amen to that. I think that is a great way to end our conversation. Beautiful families can be formed, and love is love. This was such a great conversation, especially to have during Pride Month, to talk about creation of families, starting families for same-sex couples, for LGBT, the LGBT community. Thank you all so much for the work that you do, for being members of this chamber, and just for your service. It is so appreciated, and it was wonderful to get to talk to you both today.
Yeah, it's a great way to spend the morning, for sure.
Totally agree.
And happy Pride.
Happy Pride, everybody. Thank you all so much.
Thanks.